Good evening. Here are the 5 things you need to know for Monday, June 7th. The Justice Department says they recovered more than $2 million in cryptocurrency that investigators say Colonial Pipeline paid to ransomware hackers. Ransomware attackers gained access to Colonial Pipeline's computer networks in April, forcing the company to shut down its key East Coast pipeline and causing a fuel shortage and panic gas buying for nearly a week. CEO Joseph Blunt told the Wall Street Journal last month that Colonial Pipeline paid $4.4 million to hackers to restore operations. Investigators say the proceeds went to a group known as DarkSide, which had been targeting Colonial Pipeline. The Food and Drug Administration approves a new drug in the fight against Alzheimer's for the first time in 20 years. The FDA signed off on the use of the experimental drug Aduhelm for early phases of Alzheimer's disease. The controversial approval was given despite an FDA advisory committee concluding last year there was not enough evidence to show the drug's effectiveness. Dr. Patrizia Cavazzoni is the director of the FDA's Drug Evaluation and Research Division. She says the benefits of approval outweighed the risks, and the agency says it will continue to monitor the drug's use. Attorney General Merrick Garland has announced new proposals aimed at slowing the rise in gun violence across the U.S. One key initiative in the Justice Department's proposed legislation would clarify restrictions on stabilizing braces that convert a pistol into a short-barreled rifle. A DOJ official tells CNN short-barreled rifles were used in 2 recent mass shootings in Boulder, Colorado, and in Dayton, Ohio. Over the weekend, there were 9 deadly mass shootings in 5 states. Vice President Kamala Harris begins her tour of Central America with a stop in Guatemala to discuss immigration-related issues. This is Harris's first overseas trip since being sworn in as vice president. The vice president says her trip is a reflection of the importance of the region to the Biden-Harris administration. Later this week, Harris will travel to Mexico and continue discussions about immigration issues, including increased migration from Central America to the U.S. The top U.S. general for the Mideast says the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan is about halfway complete. General Kenneth McKenzie, commander of U.S. Central Command, says the military is looking for other locations troops can be stationed to respond quickly to ISIS and al-Qaeda threats that may arise in the region after the withdrawal is complete. McKenzie added that the Afghanistan withdrawal is on pace and going smoothly. President Biden announced earlier this year plans to have all troops out of Afghanistan by September 11, 2021. That's all for your CNN 5 Things Evening Edition. For more on these stories and the latest news, you can always visit cnn.com/5things.
Good evening. Here are the 5 things you need to know for Tuesday, June 8th. Colonial Pipeline CEO Joseph Blount defended his decision to pay ransomware hackers millions of dollars following a cyber attack that led to him temporarily shutting down the pipeline last month. During a Senate hearing Tuesday, Blount testified that paying the ransom was the hardest decision he's ever made in his career, but believed it was the right choice. Blount's testimony comes a day after the Justice Department announced they recovered approximately $2.3 million in cryptocurrency allegedly paid to criminal hacking group DarkSide, believed to be responsible for the attack. The attack and shutdown led to gas shortages and triggered panic buying in parts of the U.S. A new Senate report reveals disturbing details about security failures ahead of the January 6th Capitol insurrection. The report found that U.S. Capitol Police's main intelligence unit was aware of the potential for violence beforehand, but failed to share critical threat information with the department's own officers and other law enforcement partners. There are also several omissions in the report, including any examination of former President Donald Trump's role. Sources tell CNN the report largely excluded the word insurrection in order to get bipartisan support. Canadian police say a 20-year-old driver who intentionally slammed into a Muslim family, killing 4 people, was motivated by hate. Police say the family of 5 was waiting at an intersection in London, Ontario, when Nathaniel Veltman's black pickup truck jumped the curb and hit the family. Veltman was later arrested in a mall parking lot and charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. More than half of Americans support requiring proof of vaccination to return to work. That's according to a new poll published by Axios Ipsos Tuesday. A majority of Americans also support requiring vaccination and proof of vaccination to travel or attend a large event. There was less support for requiring proof of vaccination for activities like dining at a restaurant and shopping at retail stores. Chris Harrison is permanently stepping down as longtime host of The Bachelor franchise. The show's producer and distributor confirmed the exit in a joint statement, thanking Harrison and wishing him well. In February, Harrison announced he would temporarily step down after making racially insensitive remarks during an interview with current Extra host and former Bachelorette Rachel Lindsay. That's all for your CNN 5 Things Evening Edition. For more on these stories and the latest news, you can always visit cnn.com/5things.
Good evening. Here are the 5 things you need to know for Wednesday, June 9th. President Biden arrived in the United Kingdom on Wednesday, the first stop of his first international trip as president. The 8-day diplomatic tour will have Mr. Biden traveling from England to Belgium and Switzerland. His visit to Europe includes several meetings with key allies on issues ranging from the NATO alliance, climate change, and the global COVID vaccine supply challenge. The trip will conclude with a high-stakes face-to-face meeting in Geneva between President Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Thousands of Johnson & Johnson coronavirus vaccine doses are reportedly set to expire at the end of the month. The company says it's conducting stability testing to extend the shelf life beyond 3 months. Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, told CNN the FDA is looking into whether the expiration date can be extended, and if so, how to get the doses utilized. 200,000 vaccine doses in Ohio are set to expire within 3 weeks. In less than 1 week, 5 high-profile opposition leaders have been detained in Nicaragua, months ahead of a crucial presidential election. 4 of those leaders have announced their intention to run against Nicaragua's President Daniel Ortega in the upcoming election. Ortega, a leftist former revolutionary, is running for a 4th term in November. The 5 detained opposition leaders face accusations ranging from acts that threaten national sovereignty to money laundering. Democratic Congresswoman Val Demings is making her Senate bid official. Demings announced Wednesday she is challenging Republican Senator Marco Rubio for his seat in 2022. Should Demings win in the August Democratic primary, she would face a tough general election fight against well-funded Rubio in the Republican-dominated state of Florida. The last time a Democrat won a Senate seat in Florida was in 2012. Some people in the Northern Hemisphere will be able to catch a Ring of Fire solar eclipse, the first of 2 solar eclipses this year happening on June 10th. NASA says a solar eclipse happens when the moon's path crosses between the sun and the Earth, blocking a portion of the sun's rays. Thursday's eclipse will be visible in parts of Canada, Greenland, and Russia. The American Astronomical Society says it's important for those watching the eclipse in person to wear proper eye protection. That's all for your CNN 5 Things Evening Edition. For more on these stories and the latest news, you can always visit cnn.com/5things. Good evening. Here are the 5 things you need to know for Thursday, June 10th. President Joe Biden met with UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson in southwest England on Thursday. The meeting is President Biden's first in-person engagement with Johnson. The leaders announced a new Atlantic charter aimed at strengthening the alliance between the 2 countries. During later remarks, Mr. Biden also announced plans for the U.S. to buy 500 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine to share with countries around the world. Both leaders will take part in the G7 summit, set to begin on Friday. FBI Director Christopher Wray testified before a House committee on Capitol Hill, facing questions from lawmakers on the January 6th attack on the Capitol, white supremacy, and hate crimes. These were Wray's first public comments since the release of a bipartisan Senate report this week on the January 6th insurrection and the security failures there. Wray said he expects more serious charges to be announced in connection to the insurrection. Drug maker Moderna filed for emergency use authorization with the FDA on Thursday, this time for use of its coronavirus vaccine on 12 to 17-year-olds. Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine is currently authorized for people ages 18 and older. Last month, Moderna released trial results in U.S. children ages 12 to 17, showing the vaccine produced an immune response equivalent to earlier findings in adults. Emma Coronel El Sporo, the wife of drug kingpin Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, appeared in federal court in Washington, D.C. Thursday. She pleaded guilty to 3 counts, including drug trafficking and money laundering charges. Coronel was a regular fixture at her husband's 2019 trial, where Guzman was sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years for drug trafficking and firearms charges. Her lawyer told CNN before the hearing that she wants to move on with her life and get back to her twin daughters she shares with Guzman. With summer travel on the rise, the TSA is facing a major labor shortage. The agency launched a campaign to recruit 6,000 new workers, while asking office employees to volunteer to help security officers in U.S. airports, a practice normally used during business holiday travel periods. A TSA official told CNN the agency has hired 3,100 security officers so far.
Good morning. Here are the 5 things you need to know for Friday, June 11th. For the first time since the coronavirus pandemic began, leaders of the world's advanced economies are gathering for the G7 meeting today. President Joe Biden arrived earlier this week, intent on restoring traditional American alliances. On Thursday, Mr. Biden announced the U.S. was purchasing 500 million COVID vaccine doses for worldwide distribution. The global economy is first on the agenda of the 3-day meeting, which includes the pandemic recovery. 88% of the western United States is experiencing drought this week, including the entirety of 4 states. U.S. government data shows California, Oregon, Utah, and Nevada are all experiencing drought, with scientists saying persistent drought conditions in the region are being made worse by man-made climate change. Nearly 2 million people in the San Francisco Bay Area have been placed under a water shortage emergency this week because of worsening conditions. Hackers have broken into and stolen source code from the Systems of Electronic Arts, one of the world's biggest video game publishers. Hackers claim to have obtained 780 gigabytes of data, including the Frostbite source code, which is the game engine that powers the company's well-known FIFA, Madden, and Battlefield series of video games, among others. A spokesperson for the company told CNN that player data was not compromised in the breach. Famine has hit more than 350,000 people in Ethiopia's Tigray region, according to a new report by the UN and other aid agencies. The report says that as of May, a total of 5.5 million people in Tigray and neighboring areas are facing hunger, with 353,000 people facing catastrophic levels. The situation is expected to worsen through September. Fighting between Ethiopian government troops and the region's former ruling party broke out in November.